China has responded to the Philippines' biggest ever Balikatan with drills of its own, both east of Luzon near Taiwan and in the Western Pacific, including the Liaoning aircraft carrier. This widely circulated satellite image in the South China Sea close to Hainan showing 14 vessels in its strike group. The PLA claims its response is, quote, based on the need of the security situation to safeguard national sovereignty and security as well as regional peace and stability. Beijing's three-day drills farther into the Western Pacific, which Global Times dubbed a dagger escort, also involved a destroyer and frigate squeezing through the tiny Japanese islands of Amami, Oshima and Yokohama Island, and then back through the Yonaguni-Iriomote waterway. What is the effect of China's so-called counter-deterrence training? And is it merely posturing, or are they rehearsals for a conflict? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Kavat. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by Alexander Huang, Council on Strategic and Wargaming Studies Chair. Also, we have Jason Xu, Hudson Institute Senior Fellow, and Gemont Lalari, Jewish Policy Center Senior Non-Resident Fellow. But first, on this show a few weeks ago, we raised the issue of a missile arc forming along the first island chain. Watch.
This exercise demonstrates a significant leap in Allied firepower, integrating U.S. land-based Tomahawks with Philippine BrahMos missiles and Japanese anti-ship missiles. Our alliances are rapidly fielding advanced capabilities. We're adapting to the changing character of warfare, and we're driving towards information and decision superiority.
The real value is the showcasing of our resolve to work together to defend the Philippine archipelago and to uphold the rules-based international order. This area is very important because, as we all know, Palawan is facing the West Philippine Sea, and it's just across the Kalayaan Island Group, which of course we are defending as our exclusive economic zone and where we get our resources, food and energy resources. No? So it's really very important that we defend this territory of the Philippines.
Alex, further evidence of a first island chain arc, missile arc?
The so-called first island chain arc, or the missile linkage, has been gradually in place for some time. We know that it is crucial for the Allied forces to have the ability to not only monitor but have a countermeasure in dealing with the passage or a wartime requirement to check the People's Liberation Army Navy activities. With all these missiles that put along the arc, I think it will complicate the PLA Navy, the Eastern Theater, and other operational plans. I think it's necessary for deterrence purposes. Even in peacetime, the political signals are very strong as well.
So exactly that, what you said about for deterrence. So it's, you know, do you see this very much as deterrence by denial? So it's not that we will punish you afterwards, but we're trying to deter you now.
Well, yes and no, because deterrence can be in place to prevent. But with this first island chain arc, should the PLA put their assets east of the first island chain or the eastern side of Taiwan in the Western Pacific, this arc can make sure, even in wartime, especially in wartime, that it would be very hard for the Chinese flotillas or their deployment to return to their home base for resupply. So it has both meaning in peacetime as well as wartime.
Okay, so G-Man, let's talk about, you know, these different, there's a Tomahawk, there's a BrahMos, which is also Indian as well as being Filipino, and also the Type 88 from Japan. They have different ranges. What kind of scenarios, as Alex mentioned, during wartime?
About the Type 88, the Japanese missile, it's focused on sinking ships. It could sink ships either in the Japanese waters, or if it was deployed on a ship, it could be deployed to support the Philippines and or Taiwan. The BrahMos is probably the most lethal of the anti-ship missiles because it is hypersonic and it's very difficult to shoot down.
A range of about 300, is that right?
That's
300
correct.
kilometers?
Yeah, around 300 kilometers. And the first one I mentioned is about 200 kilometers. So BrahMos, as you mentioned, is an Indian missile, but it's got some Russian flavor in it as well. Its main purpose is stopping shipping. The longer range one, which is the Tomahawk or Typhoon missile, is a U.S. missile, and it can hit not only air targets but ship targets as well. So, and it can actually range into China. These other ones are a little bit short of China because of their distance, unless they are on an airplane or a ship close to the coastline of China.
So they're, the other ones maybe are anti-ship, to sink the ships, and whereas the Typhoon or the Tomahawk Hawk will be to actually hit command and control centers in China?
Correct.
Right.
Or anything that is of significant value to the wartime commanders.
Okay, now we're going to show quickly here now some of the latest footage coming out of the Philippines. I believe it was taken from a mock invasion, so counter-landing drill. G-Man, can you talk us through, briefly?
When you're defending a location from an attack from the sea, you obviously have to target the ships and also the smaller ships that might be coming out of those big ships. So that's one aspect. Of course, there's also the issue of air cover. And so if you can gain air dominance or air superiority over that area, then you can shoot downward. But if they have the advantage, you have to shoot upward and at sea. And of course, there's also potential for submarines in the area as well.
So we're showing like the mortar.
Yeah, the mortar
firing.
one is more for the tactical. Let's say the ships coming on shore. It's a very short range situation. It's let's say it's the last part of the attack on the shore. It's close range.
Okay, all right. Now let's go back to those Japanese islands in the Okinawan and Sakishima island groups. Between the timing of the two Chinese transits, Japanese military on April 21st reported the transit of a Russian Navy Federation frigate, submarine and tugboat through the Yonaguni-Iriomoto waterway. Jason, let me come to you. So what message is China sending there? And also, how concerned should we be about Russia?
Well, it is very clearly we are looking at an early formation of a distributed and interoperable denial network that U.S. is building across the region along the Indo-Pacific first island chain with allies distributed in all the important choke points. And it is also very clear that China is also developing ways to break through these choke points by showing that they can have an intervention as well. And Russia, being China's junior partner, also has a way to also demonstrate it when there is a contingency or a crisis. They could also stirred up some sort of contingency to create a dual theater scenarios. So all of this is signaling that a formation of blocks of forces that being developed, and whether the allies can coordinate to respond and react to sudden surges of the contingencies would be a test of the response with the U.S. and its allies, and its readiness and also seriousness to address this issue.
And Jason, do you see it as a message to Japan saying, if you can go through the Taiwan Strait, we can also go through your southwestern islands, like a form of punishment for participating in Balikatan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing this as a demonstration of tit for tat. If you are able to sail through an areas that's contested, then we are also going to show that we could also do the same. And each is testing its limits and to really push each other to the brinkmanship. And that is a fear of escalating by accident. And so that's something that we need to watch very closely.
Alex, just looking at the location of those two waterways, I mean, usually the passage, from west to east into the Pacific is through the Miyako Strait. So why target these two?
Well, for military purposes, I think it's perfectly understandable that Miyako waterway or the strait is not the only only path that they can test. Number two, I think it mixed with the current political atmosphere. We all know it's not only the exercise down south with the Philippines, but also, for quite some months that the Chinese and the Japanese are in kind of at least verbal quarrel for some time. So I think the Chinese also wanted to do this to send the political signal to Tokyo, and at least to present their capability, to show their force and flag, but also sending a warning signal to Japan that the Southwest Islands to Japan are also very vulnerable, and we can, the Chinese can sail through without disruption. Again, this is a peacetime operation. For military vessels sailing through open waters in peacetime, it's okay. But again, I need to say that if there is a situation or a contingency that there is a high possibility of kinetic, conflict, those Chinese ships that been passing through the island chain and deployed in the Western Pacific, eastern side of the island chain would be also very, very vulnerable.
Okay. Gimon, so let's take a look at China's activity as a whole. We've mentioned these: East China Sea, Western Pacific, East of Luzon, South China Sea. Should we view these measures as connected, as an entire campaign by China?
Well, China wants us to connect everything. They want us to be fearful of them and get jitters and worry about that. But as Alex mentioned, those straits are surrounded by islands that are in some cases heavily armed, and so those ships are basically sunk if there was a war. So it might appear to be a challenge, but in actuality, I think it's showing China's hand, because by going through there, it's saying, oh, we can do this and we can do that. Well, tell me more what you're going to do, because then I'll set up everything so that when you do it, we'll take you out. So I think that there's a plus and a minus to this demonstration of China, what they're doing, and the ideas behind what can be done about the threat. And don't forget, there's also these submarines. The Japanese submarines are very good at finding ships on surface.
But also, is there a focus for their training, which is about trying to cut off, the resupply route from the east?
Yes, there's always that chance, but I think that China is worried that the Philippines and Japan and the United States and potentially South Korea and Taiwan are getting together and working together. Now, of course, Taiwan didn't participate in the Balikatan exercise, but everybody else did. And the fact that Japan deployed their troops in this first exercise ever into the Philippines shows that I think China is actually very concerned. And then that's the message I would like to send back to them, and saying, you're scared.
And Alex, is it sort of confirmation, that spread of their activities, that they do see like this sort of first island chain force emerging? Well,
it's not only militarily, but also politically. I think there are more consultations, more meetings, and between the Japan and the Philippines, for sure. And there are growing, conversations between Japan and Taiwan as well. So these start when we started to hook them together, and that's a very strong message in peacetime. But as everybody practiced there, including the Balikatan, exercise, I think China is now more aware of the actual power that can combine and project it against the Chinese territory or their fleet. And these are the real threat to the PLA forces. So they react to that, and I think the messages are very clear. I think a clear signal is good in peacetime, so nobody make a mistake, no misunderstanding. And that's how deterrence works. Yeah.
Jason, both your other guests mentioned, G-Man said, this is fear. Alex said, they can feel the strength of the Allied forces. Are there any other ways? I mean, do you think that the messages China's trying to send to Japan basically stay out? And we have our forces and we can assemble too, and maybe even draw in Russia. But is that backfiring? I mean, is China coming across as being aggressive?
Japan must do serious soul-searching. Will it continue to let the specter of militarism spread, distort historical facts, and whitewash its crimes? Or will it deeply and seriously reflect on its war crimes, foster a right view of history, and earn trust from its Asian neighbors and the international community? With massive hikes in military budget, the deployment of intermediate-range offensive missiles, relaxed restrictions on weapon export, attempted revision of its constitution, and abandon of the 3 non-nuclear principles, how can Japan possess itself as a peace-loving country? What's Japan really up to? What Japan needs to see clearly is that all peace-loving forces for justice will never allow new militarism to spread and threaten regional peace and stability. Instead, they will definitely meet a firm response from us.
For instance, Taiwan Ministry of Defense released a black and white photo of the Liaoning showing, there's several aircraft and helicopters. Quite unusual for Taiwan to release that.
Well, Japan's participation in this military exercises is a pivotal moment that for Japan's security commitment in the region, and to really, back Takaichi's words with action. And so China took it very seriously and also responded by targeting Japan as the country that Beijing is going to punish. And they are doing so through various means, including military means, including economic means, and all sorts of different ways. And also could be other ways such as psychological campaign as well. And so it is seen as China also trying to flex its influence and an assertion into this region. And in earlier this year, when Takaichi made a comment on Taiwan, and Beijing punished Tokyo with the ban of the tourists, I foresee this time Beijing could come even stronger. And so this demonstration of military power, especially hard power, I think will continue to prevail as U.S. strengthen the importance of Indo-Pacific region, and also Japan is leaning in, and also Taiwan is probably caught in a very centerpiece of it.
So what is your read? I mean, do you see it as a show of strength by China, or is it, fear?
It is both. China is projecting its power to allies, both to Japan in the region, as well as other countries in Southeast Asia, to basically stay out of South China Sea. And so that's something that they are showing. But the other thing is also projecting fear on those who are economically dependent on China. And obviously Japan still has a huge economic reliance on China as well. So we'll see how this play out domestically in Japan as well.
Gemont, you wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that that China, the PLA and the Coast Guard, and many parts of the military, the CMs under the CMC, are participating in a, let's say, a rehearsal or a training off the coast of Shanghai, which has been very toned down in terms of its propaganda. But in actuality, they're training in some respects for a long period, 40 days. It's a very unusual time frame to do a training event. And a lot of analysts say that that could be an endurance training event to prepare them for a blockade or an invasion.
So is that connected to the air zones that have been reserved?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it's all, and also the carrier going out came out of that area, and it's all connected. But the idea is that they're actually training for a long haul event, which in a way is threatening Taiwan directly, because the way it's shaped is actually could be brought off the coast of Taiwan, and that is a similar problem.
And you mentioned that they kept this relatively quiet for a
Right.
change, and so therefore it's all the more concerning.
It is. It's not a named exercise. They sort of immediately announced it, and they didn't say what it was for, and it's unusual that it's from sea level until infinity above the Earth, and involves all components of the military, the Army, the Air Force, the space, everybody's playing in it. So it is I would call it a rehearsal for a blockade/invasion.
Okay. Now, also during Balikatan, China released a PLA promotional video to mark the 77th anniversary of its founding, which introduces a Navy recruit called He Jian, thought to refer to China's 4th aircraft carrier, because previous PLA officers in the video are introduced taking the names of China's 1st to the 3rd carriers, Liaoning, Shandong, and Fujian. In a separate video, Taiwan is represented by a little boy called Little Wan, who is chided about going home.
爸爸，我不想回家，我还想在外面玩一会儿。
小弯啊，你可别耍赖皮啊，妈妈还在家等着你呢。
回家。
回家。
Alex, why does this video indicate that the 4th carrier could be nuclear powered?
Yeah, according to open sources so far, there is a legitimate, assessment about the size and the payload, the tonnage. It might be a nuclear-powered 4th aircraft carrier.
Is it in the name? In the it's
The He Jian, to me, if I am correct, I think it will follow, even though it's a new one, it's nuclear power, but it will follow the rules of how to name their warships. You know, there are different categories for destroyers, for frigates, and for carrier. It also carry means about the previous, especially for carriers. There were the locations that Chinese was assaulted or Chinese, were defeated. And I don't think He Jian would be the new name, but for the propaganda, short video, and calling Taiwan as Xiaowan, I would laugh at it, because it may entertain the Chinese domestic audience, but it doesn't really ring any bell, outside of China. I don't think so.
right. Yeah. And would you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. And also I want to resonate that this type of nostalgic campaign messaging worked probably in the 70s and 80s. But in today's time, it's more of to mobilize internal patriotism within China, and then to stoke up this, Chinese pride, and that their military power is the dominant, and that Taiwan should return to its martyrdom. But this narrative does not sell to Taiwan anymore. Yeah.
Right. And G-Man, what do you make of the timing of this release?
Well, it's precisely during Balikatan. Okay, that's one thing. It's also during the first ever U.S.-Japan-Philippine summit, which was happening also, and also it might be perceived as sort of in my opinion, a follow-on to the meeting that happened in Beijing with the leader of the KMT and Xi Jinping. It's sort of like a follow-on. We're all one family. Let's come together, come back home, old lost ones. And so I think that framework is sort of a continuing messaging that's happening from China to Taiwan to remind them that they think that Taiwan is part of China.
Okay, so not necessarily just the domestic audience.
No, I don't think so.
Right, okay. We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Alexander Huang, Jason Xu, and Gimart Lalari for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. See you next time.